In this video, I'm going to explain why analyzing your dreams could literally change your life, some of the most common dreams that people have, such as being chased or flying, and what it actually means about their psychology, and some changes that you can make to your daily life based on these dreams. Make sure you stay till the end where I talk about some pretty strange dreams, such as your teeth falling out, and make sure you subscribe if you love all things psychology. Firstly, why are dreams so important? Freud and Carl Jung talk about how dreams are an opportunity for your subconscious mind to come out. We spend most of our time in our conscious thinking brain, and that's part of the reason why we often feel so lost. Your subconscious can actually show you your true desires for relationships, career, and other areas of your life. And so if you're able to tap into this knowledge, analyze it, and then implement it into your life, you can literally change your life and stop being depressed, stop being anxious or lost. A little warning before we start, this is not easy work and takes humility. Freud talks about how the reason we forget 90% of our dreams is actually because our ego is protecting us from knowing these truths about ourselves. And so as you get into these common dreams I'm about to talk about, come in with an open mind and a little bit of courage as well, because making the changes that your dream wants you to make is not easy work. First up, we have one of the most common ones, and this is when you're flying in your dream. This can be super fun and signifies that you want more freedom and empowerment in your waking life. For whatever reason, you might feel a little bit limited in your waking life or a little bit stuck. Maybe you're stuck in a job you don't want. Maybe you're not fully expressing yourself. And this dream is showing you that you want to break free and have a little bit more freedom. So the way to implement this one is to start trying to do some more novel, new things in your waking life, or make some big changes with things where you're feeling really stuck. Then you'll stop having this dream. Another cool fact is this one's associated with lucid dreaming. So if you've ever wanted to control your dreams while you're having them, try to lucid dream if you frequently dream about flying. The second is falling during your dreams. This one hits really close to home because this is one that I used to have as a kid all the time. This one means that you might be going through some crazy changes in your actual life and you feel a little bit out of control. Maybe you're changing jobs, you're changing cities, you're changing friend groups, and you just feel a little bit stressed or overwhelmed with what's happening and you want more control on the situation. The way to overcome this in your waking life is a couple things. One, identify areas where you are in control and areas where you're not. In the areas where you're not in control, try to just let them be and relax and focus on the things that are in your control. A second way of dealing with this is to break down things in your life into more manageable steps so you're not so overwhelmed. Then you'll stop having this falling dream. Third is when you're being chased during your dream. This one can be incredibly scary, but also has an obvious meaning for your daily life. When you're being chased in your dream, what it's reflecting is you are afraid of confronting something in your waking life. Depending on what you're being chased by, it can indicate what you actually might be running from. If you're being chased, for instance, by an animal, you might be running from your own passions or your own desires in your waking life. Maybe you're staying in a job that you hate, you're not taking the plunge and going for what you truly love, even though you want to. And so make those changes. If you're being chased by a figure that you don't know who it is, you might be running from something more relational. Maybe a hard conversation with someone or someone you're interested in and you haven't actualized with this one, that the things that we fear in our waking life, if we don't address them, they actually end up getting bigger and scarier in our minds. I know from experience that when you actually address your fears or the thing that you're running from, they actually end up being a lot smaller and more manageable than you ever realized they would be. So if you're dreaming about being chased in your dream, just try to figure out what you're running from in your waking life. If you're constantly naked in your dreams, this could be a sign that you're not being your full authentic self during your waking life. Maybe you're holding back saying certain things. Maybe you're not putting boundaries because you're a little bit of a people pleaser, right? Anytime you're not being your full true self and saying your opinions, doing what you want to do in your life, you're gonna dream about being naked because it's a sign to expose more of yourself. So you can start really small by saying a certain boundary about yourself in your life, telling people that you won't reply to messages in this certain time, or for instance, wearing a type of clothing that other people might judge you for, but that you actually think's really cool. Any little steps to becoming more authentic and your full self will address this dream. Next is when you dream about someone who's passed away. This means a couple things. One, you might just not have processed the grief fully, and you should do things like journaling your feelings or meditating on them passing away in order to help with the grief. A second meaning could be that there's something tied to this person that they almost would have wanted you to do in your life. Maybe an important figure passed away that was always supporting your passions. And until you actually integrate your passions more into your life, this dream will keep coming up. And so those are two reasons you might be having this dream. The next is when you dream about your partner or the person you're with cheating on you. Important, this doesn't actually mean that they are cheating on you. It's more a reflection of your feelings than their actual actions. When you have this dream, you're typically insecure in the relationship. You might be putting them on a bit of a pedestal and feeling like they're out of your league or you're not good enough for them. Or you might just have a little bit of low self-esteem, low self-worth. Either way, the way to work on this is to have good communication with your partner, but also just to focus on yourself a little bit. Understand that your partner isn't going to give you everything in your life, and you should work on your own self-esteem, your own skills, in order to stop having this dream. Next is when you have a dream about being late for something. This one's pretty self-explanatory for your actual life, but typically it's because you have some sort of deadline coming up and you're stressed that you won't make that deadline. One important thing here is sometimes these deadlines are self-imposed. So let's say, for instance, you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to hit certain goals for your business by a certain date. If you put a lot of pressure on and stress on yourself to make it by that date, you might actually be having a lot of subconscious stress. And so one way around this is to have a little bit more wiggle room and focus more on the actual process as opposed to the dates that you put on your goals. If you dream about failing a test or an exam or something that's coming up, this one's pretty self-explanatory. You have some anxieties about a performance or an exam or something that's in your future. Or sometimes you're kind of stuck in a certain stage of your life, and until you actually progress to the next stage, or for instance, pass the exam or the metaphorical exam, you'll keep having this dream. And so one thing here to apply to your life is sometimes this dream's actually an indicator that you just need to take the plunge into the thing that you've been wanting to do. People who research forever, research for months, but don't actually end up taking the plunge because they think they need more information, are more likely to have a dream like this. So sometimes you just have to take the first step before you're actually even feeling like you're ready. Remember that progress is more important than perfection, especially when you're starting out with stuff. This is the part of the video where they start getting a little more niche and kind of strange. So the next one is if you dream about snakes. Snakes is one of the historically and culturally most significant and common dreams as well. When you dream about snakes, you feel a little bit constricted or sort of repressed in your waking life. for whatever reason you feel like you're not able to either express yourself fully or have the freedom you crave. A positive interpretation of this dream is that there might be some big change on the horizon that's positive for your life. This is because in many cultures throughout history, snake venom was associated with transformation. So if you're having this dream, prepare yourself for maybe a big shift in your life, whether that's a spiritual awakening, a change in jobs, or something that could really change a lot for you. The next one is dreaming about your hair falling out. Typically, this dream has to do with anxiety, but specifically about losing some sort of aspect about you. It doesn't necessarily have to be your hair or even something physical, but you have some sort of anxieties about losing something in your life, whether that's a job or a relationship, or even a way of thinking that you used to hold on to. The way to around this one is to first identify what it is that you have such anxiety about losing. Write that down and then really try to detach from that thing. Once you've identified what you're afraid of losing or have been losing, it's a lot easier to look at it and sort of detach from the loss of it. The more we can detach from the things that we are losing in our life, and the more we can understand that when we lose things, it actually opens up doors for new things to flood in, the more we can understand this philosophy, the better our lives are gonna be. And so learn to detach from these things that we feel we're losing. If you dream of dark or gloomy or even black and white and kind of depressing places, typically this is a reflection of feeling lost in your waking life or a little bit sad or depressed. The thing about this one is depression can be viewed in a couple different ways. One can be maybe you need to start managing your depression a little bit. Journaling, seeing a therapist, and working on shaping your thoughts. But another way to view it is actually an opportunity. Often when we're in these more depressed and down states, that's an opportunity to have the most growth. And you get more perspective for the future from overcoming these depressed states. And so be curious when you're depressed. In what way is my current life in misalignment with how I actually want to be? The more that you're in alignment with who you feel like you want to be and should be at the current time, the less likely you are to be depressed. Next is if you dream about being on the stage. I've had this one before, and this is a reflection of a desire to express yourself more creatively and really get yourself out there. Maybe you have a job that doesn't allow you to express yourself and it's just behind a computer screen or something like that. You need to essentially express yourself, whether it's through communication, stand-up comedy, singing, whatever it is. There's a side of you that wants to be expressed more in your waking life. And so the more you can integrate this, and it doesn't mean you need to switch careers and become a singer, stand-up comic, or something like that. But if you're having this, what you can do is just bring a little bit of that into your life, right? Occasionally go to an open mic night or a karaoke, or put one of your poems on the internet, or say one of your opinions in a group discussion. Something that shows more of yourself is what this dream is wanting you to do. Next is if you dream about someone in a romantic way and that person is really unexpected. It's not who you're expecting. The thing about this one is it can be really easy to jump to the conclusion that, oh geez, maybe I like this person then. But that's not usually the interpretation of this dream. Typically, it's associated with an aspect actually of your own personality that is unexpressed in your waking life. So pay attention to who the person actually is in the dream and what about them that you might be curious about or drawn towards, because that might be an indicator of a side of you that you actually want to express more in your waking life. So maybe the unexpected person is like a rock star or an artist or something like that, and you work at a corporate job. It doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be in a relationship with an artist or a rock star, but it might mean that you want more of that for yourself in your own life. So if you can figure out what it is about that person and integrate it more into your life, you'll probably stop having this dream. The next one is pretty strange, but if you dream about dying, like you yourself actually die in the dream, it has less to do with a desire to die or necessarily even a fear of death, but it actually has more to do with the symbolic desire for you to kill off a side of yourself or something that you're doing in your waking life. Maybe it's an identity. For instance, maybe you used to be an athlete and you need to actually almost kill off that identity so you can actually create a new life and a new way of being. That's one example. Another example could be you've been in the same career for a number of years and you really identify with being really skilled at that career, but your subconscious deep down knows that you want to do something else. And this dream is essentially an indicator to be like, hey, kill off that version of yourself so that you can become an even greater and newer and fresher version of yourself. The next is actually quite a common one and really interesting as well symbolically, but it's if you dream about wild animals. So not necessarily dogs or cats or anything that you could domesticate, but if you're dreaming about dolphins or lions or anything that's untamed and out in the wild, it's typically a reflection that that's a side of you that wants to be expressed. You see that there's a theme here now, but this wild animal kind of archetype is something that you might see in yourself, but you're not allowing to be fully expressed in your waking life. And so maybe your life has too much routine. Maybe you go to bed the same time, you never try anything new, you never experiment in your relationship or food or your career. And there's a side of you that just wants that primal, just to be a little bit more wild. So you can do that through travel to a new place with no plans. If you can't travel, you can do it by trying a new food, going to new restaurants, even just small things like taking a different route to work. Anything that makes you feel a lot more present and having to be spontaneous and thinking in the moment is really what you need to do if you're having this dream a lot. The next one is one that I used to actually have quite a lot, and that's if you get shot in your dream. Sometimes I would actually wake up because I literally thought I got shot. But this is typically a reflection that you feel victimized in your day-to-day interactions. Typically with a person, but it could also be at work or something like that. There's some area of your life where you feel like a victim, but it's typically also though where you're being a little bit passive. So you might not be voicing your annoyances, you might not be setting boundaries, you might be a little bit of a people pleaser, and so it just feels like the person's almost like killing you and overwhelming you because you're kind of allowing them to. So typically it's an indicator that you need to pay attention where it feels like in your waking life that people are going over your boundaries or you don't even have any boundaries, and start setting some boundaries. Start saying what annoys you instead of allowing resentment to build up. So that's what you need to do if you're having this dream. The next one's one of the most common and kind of the strangest as well. It's when you dream about your teeth falling out. Teeth are very symbolic of our health and our well-being. It's really the first passage into our entire system. And so symbolically, it's really important with your health, your appearance, your fertility, and all this type of stuff. So if you're having this dream, typically you have some anxieties about your health or your physical appearance, and in particular, your physical appearance. So the way to overcome this one is in your waking life, figure out your insecurities or what you're anxious about with your physical appearance, and either try to have some self-acceptance around it, or if you can, take some proactive steps to become healthier or to address that concern. Maybe you have some anxiety about a little bit of extra weight, or the fact that you're not very strong, or the fact that your hair is always kind of a mess. And if you address this in your waking life, then you'll stop having this dream, and you'll also probably start having less subconscious anxiety about this. The next one's quite interesting, but if you dream that you're a celebrity or that you're hanging out with celebrities, it's typically a reflection of your desire for admiration in your waking life, or to become a little bit more high status or have people like you or notice you more. One word of caution with this one is it doesn't mean you should chase these markers of success or celebrity in your waking life. Because if you truly look at people who end up famous or celebrities or whatever it is, most of them don't actually go out trying to be famous and trying to be celebrities from the beginning. And the ones that do, they're typically the ones who end up incredibly unhappy, or they end up not being famous for very long. And the reason is that going after that just for the sake of fame or whatever, it's like filling a void with something that's completely empty. The truth is what you really need to do is figure out your passions, something that you literally could be the best in the world at, and then follow that thing. And then perhaps if it's meant for you, fame and celebrity will be a byproduct of that. That's a lot more sustainable, and you'll actually be happy if you do end up being famous. For the next, I just need to say something that's really important when you get into dream analysis and also just analyzing your subconscious. If you're having a reoccurring dream, I'm talking 3, 4, 5 times maybe over the course of even a few years, this is one that you really should pay attention to. Typically, things that we need to look at and maybe should change in our life start initially as a slight gut feeling, but then they transition into a dream that you can interpret. And eventually, if you don't make the change, it might manifest as a physical symptom. So let's say you constantly have the dream about falling in love or being part of a loving community or something like that, but in your waking life, you're actually kind of alone, you're isolated, you're afraid of intimacy. If you keep ignoring this reoccurring dream, you might end up getting symptoms as well, physical symptoms such as heartache or tightness in your chest or something like that, which eventually long-term will translate into actual physical dis-ease. And so paying attention to your dreams isn't just about having a little bit of fun and stuff like that. It can have real physical implications long-term. So this is work, and it is an art as well. It's not necessarily full science, it's a little bit of both, but this is an art that's worth becoming a better artist at. If I missed any weird dreams that you've had before, make sure you comment them below and I'll reply with an interpretation of what the dream means. And make sure you subscribe and follow along for all things psychology.